has the potential to be a really fun project, also has the potential to be too heavy and not very useful. So there's kind of like a fine line. Obviously, what would be the best thing was if I made 10 of these, and then by the 10th one, I really nailed down the design. But obviously, don't have that kind of money, don't have that kind of fun. Okay, I love making practical things, and this week's project is going to be that. I've always wanted to make one. I see them in lots of old gardens and things like that, and I just think they'd be a useful tool. So I want to make a wooden wheelbarrow, but not the standard wheelbarrow shape. I want to make kind of an old style, kind of almost like for moving hay or for moving branches, things like that. I think it'd be really handy to have in the garden. Now, I've looked at different ways of making it. A lot of the old ones had wooden wheels with an iron band around it. Yes, that looks lovely. It's not very practical. So what I'm going to use is an old bicycle wheel for the main wheel. I'm going to make it out of the Scandinavian redwood that I buy all the time, just because that's what I've got. Heavily oiled. It seems to last really well outside. Just oil it every year. But it will be stored under cover. So I'm going to try and work it as we go. We might have to alter things as we go. Kind of projects like this are very adaptable. You might start and you think, oh, this is awful, you know, but we need to go through that process and figure things out. So I'm going to get some timber in here. We are going to do some planing. So we're going to surface it. We surface two sides to make a square edge. Then we run it through the thicknesser. Then we got the square edges, so that goes through. We know then we've got a square piece of timber, and it just makes everything else so much easier. So when you see me doing this next bit, I've surfaced it first, then I run it through the thicknesser. Not very interesting, but it's just the way we do things. So we get ourselves a square edge, and then we can carry on from there. I'm going to make the two side pieces about 2x2, 50 by 50, or whatever I can get out the timber. Now, ordinarily, the advice with carpentry is to keep the piece of wood as long as possible, for as long as possible. But those people don't work in a workshop that is 10 foot wide. So I argue we'll cut it a bit smaller so I actually move it around. This is quite a nice big piece of timber. It looks very free of knots on the one side. It's quite a pretty piece of timber. This is a piece of 50 by 150. So it means we're probably going to end up with 45mm sides to it. So that's, and I think it wants to be about 6 foot long. So cut it just over 6 foot for now. We'll cut that, we'll try and get 3 out of there. That gives the 2 long lengths and the 2 uprights. And then everything else could be at a slightly smaller stock, I feel, because we want to keep the weight down on this, so it's not just about strength, not building it like just to be like a tank. So I've been having a bit of a rethink actually. I planed up this timber for the 2 supports, which has given me the kind of the long length of the wheelbarrow, and with a 2x2 it should be plenty strong enough. Now, need to shape the ends of these and stuff, but instead of it being quite square like the ones I'd seen kind of historically, I think having it on an angle like that, because otherwise it's going to involve some welding. I don't have the welding gear here, nor am I going to get to Dad's in time for the deadline for this magazine article, so that would be rubbish. So obviously a bike wheel has some advantages. It's got its bearing inside it already, so it kind of spins. So the thinking was I can make some at an angle iron piece that the wheel slots into or onto. It can go down here. We can have it kind of that far apart, like that. That could be nice and square. This can then widen out to the 50 or so centimetres it wants to be. 500mm. So I've got this old wheel off the boy's bike. The boy's old bike, I should say. He doesn't need it anymore. It's too big. The bike's definitely seen better days. Just been to see my neighbour, Ken, and managed to get myself a nice pit of galvanized angle iron, which I think will be perfect. So I'm going to square up the one end, cut it in half, and then I'm going to cut myself a notch in it for the wheel to sit. Okay, so I've made my little brackets, and we've got, if I move it forward, a spinny wheel. Woo! Impressed, I know. So, dead simple, and we can screw that for now or bolt it. Doesn't really matter. Let's get on with the rest of it. So we need, I'm going to put a piece in here and a piece in there, and that kind of makes us our little basic frame for it. And then we can build the rest of the stuff on top, is my kind of thinking. Obviously need to round it down so we've got something nice to hold. Not quite sure how we'll do that yet. But let's put in a piece here and a piece about there, I should say. Now, could mortise and tenon this just normally. I am going to use my big old domino cutter, I think, just because it's going to be so much quicker. So you see, put a piece in there, and a piece in there, and that's formed our like A-frame, which is like the main strength of it. Got the handles, the right width apart, same as my other wheelbarrows, which is about 520 inches. Now I don't use the domino as much as I used to, but it is a handy tool. I know it's expensive. I know there'll be people criticising me, people hate Festool. I love Festool. As someone that has to earn their living from it, it makes a big difference to me. This I don't use as much as I used to. I used to make doors, some doors and things like that with it. I found it really quite good. I put a smaller bit in there. We're going to make ourselves some little mortises in either side, and then we'll use some loose tenons, and we can connect it up. So if I cut them first, then we can shape these ends. That's my plan. And it's dead simple to do with this, because we put the mortise in either. We literally just mark the centre. Make sure I'm in the right place. Just do a test piece to start with. So I set up some dogs so I can push back against it, and then we're just going to cut these about 40mm into it. Dead easy just to centre it up. I'll do one now. Obviously it'd be lovely to have the time to do it by hand or with a mortiser, but I have no mortiser that's assembled at the moment, and time is always a valuable commodity. So although some may see that as cheating, it makes some nice mortise and tenon joints, to be honest with you. Plenty fine for what we're doing here. Plenty fine, not even English. Perfectly fine for what we're doing here. Okay, we want to make a nice little handle for the ends, something nice to hold. So I'm going to kind of do it so it kind of drifts off that way on the bottom, a bit thinner on the sides, and then we'll just round it over with the sander and stuff, get it nice and smooth. Very simple. It's still fairly square, but it's nice and smooth in the hand. And you've got that little bit on the end. It's quite nice because it stops it slipping out your hand when you're walking along. And with anything like this, it's not worth messing about too much, but you know, we've got a shape for one, we might as well use it for the other. So I reckon we'll glue that together now. My only concern is with the wheel being out here is like twist and stuff. So it's whether it kind of needs, if that needed to go on to completely enclose the wheel or not. I'm hoping it should be strong enough. We'll see. So let's glue this up. Use some Tide Bond Free. Always my glue of choice. Ultimate glue spreader, the finger. If I keep moving the camera back and forth, it's almost like I've got two cameras. Anything like this now, you get lots of glue squeeze out, which when you're oiling it up at the end, if you haven't sanded off, which is quite hard to do in all the corners and stuff, it will stop the oil getting there. So what's good to do, have a wet rag, wipe all around the joints if you need to. You've got this, it's squirted out. Okay, so leaving the clamps on for a little bit, just flipped it over, work on the other side while it's going off. It's nearly gone off, I've just been and had lunch. So now I'm going to draw a straight line down the middle so we get our wheel in line, is the thinking. I need my tape. So we're going to mark our halfway mark, and then half of 16 is 8. What we'll do is we'll lie on a nice long straight edge. That's our middle line, okay? And what we can do, we can adjust, so this is kind of loosely tightened up. I can adjust it. I reckon that's about right. So let's put some holes down through that. Obviously, probably better on a pillar drill. Just put a bit of wood underneath there, stops anything from breaking out on the underside. Before I go any further and bolt that on, I'm going to sand this up and just route a little chamfer on all the edges just to make it look a bit tidier. Bolt this wheel on. Let myself have a little sit down. Got some coach bolts, always a favourite of mine. We could sink them in a bit with the hammer. And now, basically, you can add whatever top you want to it. So we need to make some stands so it's kind of flat, and then a thing to stop it going on the wheel. We're kind of done. Maybe I've made it a little long, I don't know. I quite like it. So make the stands so it stands up. So I think this would be great for like a hardening off wheelbarrow, so I can put my plants on here and wheel them outside every day as I'm trying to harden them off. You know, and brush them inside if it's going to frost. Have that like that. I think we'll bolt that as well actually. Is that going to be the right height? Okay, so I've rebaited, put on the stands. That's to keep it flat, so it is quite a lift actually. You have to bend down to pick it up. It's not like your usual wheelbarrow, so you know, I want it to be flat when it's kind of in, when it's out of operation. So now it's a case of making a carriage to go across it. So I'm thinking I want this to slot over here and be an upright with some kind of little angly bracey bits. So we cut this 500, which is how wide the barrow is. We can mark up the halfway and then we can notch it over this bit here. Okay, what I've done is I've put a halving joint onto this now, so it kind of slots over, so it kind of just locates nicely. And then for some uprights, I've done some little halving joints, so that can kind of slot into there and into there. They want screwing together now. And then I can make a little brace to go down there and there, and that should stop it tilting over forward. And then we can put some slats on this and just kind of screw them on, and I think that'd be fine. Okay, so now we've got this end bit assembled. I think we'll make it like a whole bed that comes off basically. So my plan is to machine up some slats now, lots of them, and we'll have a diagonal going down there as well. So it can all be out of kind of this stuff, and I'm going to rip it down into 2-inch strips and then plane it up so it looks nice, get a bit thinner, and chamfer all the edges. Right, so with slats, I've cut all the slats and I've cut some longer lengths, and I've put the kind of 6-degree bevel on the end. And the idea is I'm gonna nail these now, line up all my slats and look down and see that it will fit, nail it all together, and then when I flip it over, it will fit in there nice, and I can just pop a couple of screws in it, hold that bed down. I still need to figure a way of holding that upright with some slats going across it. That's easy enough. That's for a little bit of time. But let's get this sorted now. So if I can nail up this end one, probably worth flipping it over and making sure it fits. Make sure it fits, and it does. Four, 2, 6. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 gaps. So 46 mil each. So a couple of spacers, evened it out. It's 46 mil between each slat. And then the other one is to make sure they're flat on the ends here. That's easy enough. So I've got this end piece here. Wasn't quite sure how to fix it. I'm still not sure 100%. But I think what we'll do is we'll just screw a brace to there and a brace to there. I think that'll possibly do it. And then we put some slats on there, going on up. Nothing too fancy, but we can pilot that. Oh, that's my thumb. Now it's just time for staining it or painting it. Part of me wants to use milk paint because it just looks lovely, got that lovely kind of matte finish to it. But all my garden stuff, all the wooden stuff is kind of treated with linseed oil. Makes it really easy for me, so if I'm doing some stuff I can just treat some other stuff. And I think actually the wood's really nice on this. It'd be nice to leave it as just linseed oil, so I think that's what I'm going to do. Ideally, I know I should remove the wheel and stuff, but I'm not going to. So I'm really pleased with this. It has a kind of nice kind of tactile feel to it, like anything wood does. Turning circle, actually not as good as you kind of think. You've got to remember it's quite a longer wheelbase than a wheelbarrow. So obviously you've got to kind of take that into account. So it's not quite as manoeuvrable as a wheelbarrow. Also the fact that this isn't over the top of the wheel, so that would bring the wheel back a lot. But it keeps it low. So my idea for this is to use it for seedlings when I'm hardening off. And I've made it so that I can kind of make it adaptable. So the idea is that this comes out and then you can make another insert to go in there with greedy boards, say, for weeding or for prunings and things like that. There's lots of things you could do. You could make it as a wheeled hoe. You know, that would actually work quite well as a wheeled hoe, just this A-frame set up like that. There's a lot of things you could use this kind of basic setup for, and I did in the past. One thing I've noticed a lot in the past, in the ones of the past, they have a threaded bar going down and through either end to kind of hold it together. I'm guessing if it's used a lot, then maybe it'll start to come loose. Use some good glue and some good, some good joints, so it should be okay. The other thing is maybe it'd be worth bracing the uprights, but this isn't going to be used super heavily, so I think it'll be all right as it is. But yeah, I'm really, really pleased with it. I think it's quite a fun project. Reuses an old bike wheel. I've used some nice timber to make it. You could make it out of much, much cheaper timber. You could make it out of CLS, and it wouldn't matter as long as you treated it afterwards. And found some decent pieces. Obviously, a bit posher using this Scandinavian redwood, but it works well for me. You could fix this down as well. There's no reason not to. But yeah, basically, I'm really, really chuffed with it. Fun project, should make an interesting magazine article. So if you watched this video to the end, thank you, it means the world to me, and I'll see you next time.